Okay. So I'm in on Facebook. All right. Let me see if I can go. Now, where do I go for Instagram?
So you're live.
Where do I go for Instagram? I'm in Instagram, but I don't see where I go live. I've never done Instagram live.
Okay, so you know you're live right now, right?
Well, guess what? Hey, y'all, I'm trying to figure this thing out. Bear with me. I've never done this before. So I'm trying to get on. Do I go to IGTV? Hey, Cambrian. Girl, you're not playing. You are on here early. It's not even 8 o'clock. Welcome. I may as well go ahead and go live on Periscope.
Okay, so go at the top. Go at the top. Can you hear me?
Okay, I'm at the top. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so go to your page on Instagram. Look at the top. You're going to see your face. And you're going to see a plus sign. Hit the plus sign that's right next to your face.
Mm-hmm.
Look down below. You're going to see type. It's going to say live. Hit live. And there you go.
That's actually not what I see. It says enable microphone. I tap on that. Okay. Live. Start live video. Okay. It says my live video is paused. I don't know. It says we're telling your followers that you're starting a live video.
Oh, well, then there you go.
Okay. Yes, and it is exactly 8 o'clock. And when I tell you this was not easy, listen, the struggle is real. I literally was on the phone. I have my dad is almost 90 years old, and he's just kind of going rogue. He's got Parkinson's. He just recently had a stroke, and he's still trying to hold on to his independence and act like he doesn't, he doesn't need care, or doesn't need help or anything. And I looked up and saw what time. I was like, oh, wait, I got to get on Girl Talk. So I called my social media expert, Girl Friday, little sis T, and I said, okay, help me get on all these things. So I'm going to ask you all for grace, because I have never tried to be, I've never tried to be on all three streams at one time. So I've got Facebook here. Hey, Facebook, let me know you're here and where you're streaming from. And then I've got Periscope over here. Hey, Periscope, let me know how you doing and where you're streaming from. And also, hopefully I can see some of your comments. And then, hey, over here to Instagram, thanks for getting on, and let me know where you're streaming from. So hopefully I can start seeing some comments. It says to scroll for comments. Okay. Hey, Snellville. Wait, Sharitha, you're from Philly. Hey, homegirl, how you doing? So we've got Latanya. Thanks for praying for Dad. I appreciate that. Where are you guys from? So if I could ask, Cambridge, Pinehurst, Texas, outside of Tomball. Okay. All right. Welcome. So is everybody having a good Friday? Did you have a good week? A short week, because we had Labor Day in here. So that's always kind of nice when you get to have like that 4-day week, and then all of a sudden you look up and it's the weekend. I'm going to ask that you guys would share this, share the love, because we're going to have some fun, and more importantly, we're going to unpack some stuff. I'm trying to make sure I can get my comments. Okay, here they come. Hey, Valerie. Yeah, invite all your followers so that they can come in too. Hey, Keisha. Keisha's waving. Rock, paper, scissors. Okay, now that's a creative name. Hey, T. Okay, so Facebook, I'm not seeing comments scroll up. So Peg John joined, and Chantrad. So welcome everybody. I just appreciate everybody jumping on and getting to hang out for a little bit on a Friday night. Again, for those of you who just got on, I'm asking for grace because I literally have never tried to broadcast on all three. So if I'm not looking at you, or it seems like I'm not engaged with you because I'm looking, I've got three different devices going on, then that's why. So let's go ahead and jump in. You know, I love comments. And even if I don't get to see your comments while I'm live, I always go back and check them. So if I don't say anything to you while I'm live, just know that I will go back and check through them and kind of get a pulse and see what's going on and get a chance. You know, the hard part about being online is that you don't get a chance to see kind of everybody and interact and know what's going on. So the comments really help. Hey, Lexi, long time no seeing you online. So can I just share with you all? And you know, I'm always amazed at some of the stuff, just the smallest little life experiences that can have such a lesson. Now, people who know me laugh and ask me, like Tia's always asked me, she says, is every single thing with you have to be a lesson? And I thought about it, and I'm like, absolutely it does. You know why? Because I am not a wilderness kind of girl. Now, I've been in the wilderness many times, but I'm not overly fond of the wilderness experience. So I am not the one who wants to keep going round and round the same mountain. So if there's something for me to learn, I'm always looking for what do I need to get out of this? What do I need to change, do different, or correct? Because I don't want to come back around this mountain. So anyway, this was actually, you know, somewhat lighthearted. So I'm in the gym and I'm on the treadmill. And can I just tell you, and I know this is petty, but when you're at the gym and there's like, if I'm on my treadmill and there's like a bazillion other treadmills going all the way down the road as far as the eye can see, why do you get on the treadmill next to somebody? Go get on another treadmill so everybody can kind of have their personal space. But anyway, I digress. So I'm on the treadmill and this lady comes and gets on the treadmill right next to me. So automatically my antenna goes up because now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's up with her? Like, what about this treadmill that you couldn't go get on one of the other bazillion treadmills in this gym? So I start looking and I look over, and you know how you're trying to be discreet, so you kind of like do this out the side of your eye, because I'm trying to figure out, what is this woman doing? So finally I just said, you know what, obvious isn't cutting it. If I'm gonna figure it out, I just need to look. So I look over. She is literally on the treadmill trying to walk at a slow pace with her cell phone like this. And so she's trying to walk, get in the fact that she's, you know, to show that she's in the gym, kind of tilting it, getting the right angle, and taking selfies on the treadmill. Now, of course, I'm thinking, why do you need a selfie on the treadmill? I let it go. She took about 10, 12 selfies. And then she was walking a little bit still at a slow pace. And I love when people all of a sudden feel like, even if I didn't say a word to her, but she must have felt convicted or feeling some kind of way, because she looks at me and says, well, I'm just trying to, you know, get it done and keep it going. Now, I hadn't said a word to her, and I just said, like, I just kind of looked over and I took my little AirPod out. I said, okay. And it was almost like she was trying to justify why she's on the treadmill taking a selfie. So I thought about it. She walked maybe another 2-3 minutes and then hopped off, and then away she went. And I thought about it and I said, okay, clearly she's in some kind of form of denial. Now, I promise you what I'm about to say, because I have no idea to know. If you are the lady that was next to me on the treadmill taking a selfie, I am not throwing shade. I am not judging you. However, I found myself thinking, who is she fooling? Because she looked like she could have spent the next few lifetimes on that treadmill working out the multitude of sins that were apparent on her body. Is that a very nice way of saying what I'm trying to get across? So all of a sudden I'm thinking, so she gets on, she takes some selfies, and then she gets off and leaves. And I started thinking, I said, how many times do we do that in life where we are not fooling anybody but ourselves? She had treadmill selfie, but we had faith selfie where we're going to church, we're doing all this stuff, and if somebody took a selfie of us in the moment, we have a shout, we have a praise, we've been to Bible study, we have the selfie to prove it. Or a career selfie where it's like I'm really I'm acting a good game. Or goal selfies or relationship selfies where in that moment in time you try and capture yourself like you really have it going on, like I got this thing, when in fact you're just fooling yourself. So no more like fake selfies. Like it's time to get real. So whatever it is you're saying I need to work on, I need to get it done, I want to make it happen, I want to get this goal accomplished, stop with the fake selfies. Get real with yourself. So that was for free. That wasn't even part of the girl talk. I just happened to think about that because it just happened and I just thought it was so hilarious. So I'm keeping it 100, Valerie. You're absolutely right. Okay, so listen. I don't know, for those of you who have not been on Girl Talk, this is where we just open it up and get real. And I promise you, I never know what we're going to end up talking about. I never know what I'm going to end up saying because it's just completely unscripted, unfiltered. Here we are. What I would ask you to do, still, for everybody who's still kind of coming in, don't forget to share it with your friends and kind of spread the word so we can share the love. But what I did before I did this Girl Talk, I have a subscriber group on Facebook. And if you're not a part of it, I would encourage you to become a part of it. I believe if you send me a message to my Facebook page, then I can get you added to my subscriber list. Alternatively, if that does not work, then you can just send an email to team@Stacey Speller and we'll get you set up. Because there's all kinds of benefits to being on the subscriber list. So anyway, I sent out a message to the subscriber list and I said, hey ladies, I'm just going to get on. We're going to do some girl talk, kind of do some informal coaching, unpack some stuff. Send me some questions. What's the stuff that's like burning in your heart that's troubling you? So I got a bunch of questions and I just picked a few for the sake of time because we're not trying to be on here all night for people who still have plans or want to go do some other stuff on a Friday night. But I have a bunch of questions and we'll just kind of go through them. And again, if you have comments, if there's something that, you didn't catch, again, you can send an email and we'll definitely follow back up with you. But here it goes. And, if you want to interrupt me with a message, I'll try and catch them on all the devices. So the first question is this: how do you forgive totally from your heart as opposed to forgiving in your mind? How do you do that? Which, forgiveness is just one of those things. I don't care what, we cannot ever let our guard down to think that, we have to constantly be mindful of the spirit of forgiveness. Because if we're not careful, life happens and the struggle is real. And to be perfectly honest with you, if you let your guard down, you'll find yourself holding on to some stuff so quickly you won't even realize. I'll give you a prime example. I'll use me. Now, I tend to be pretty easygoing, pretty low key. Very little tends to get under my skin. I always ask myself before something happens, I say, is this worth the upset? And chances are it's not, and I tend to let it go. But for whatever reason, and I don't even know why, I was getting ready to pull into a parking space. And where I live, this is, I feel like I'm on an episode of Survivor. It's like, kill or be killed, where, parking space is like at a premium. So I've been riding around in the Costco parking lot, looking for a parking space. I finally found one. I'm sitting there with my blinkers on, I'm indicating I'm about to get in this space. Why does this woman come literally and just zip past me and take the parking space? I say it's out of character, but that's not really true. because I don't believe people act out of character. We act out of the condition of our heart. So I really needed to check my heart. I was livid. I mean, literally, Stacey Speller, woman of God, prayer warrior, I got out of my car and I just started, I started yelling at the woman, like just totally went rogue on her. Like, how did you see I'm about to park in this space? How dare you? And I had to literally catch myself and say, oh my God, what are you doing? First of all, people are crazy and this parking space isn't worth getting shot over. And second of all, this is such a bad witness. Like, really? So I said, okay, never mind. I let it go. I got my cart and I went into Costco. I'm in Costco. I'm still on boil. I'm putting stuff in the cart, but I'm boiling. I'm like, I know she did not just do that. Still mad. And it was about 10 minutes when I had to finally say, if you don't let this go and get a handle on yourself, this is ridiculous. And it's little things like that where we just start holding on to stuff. And that's where unforgiveness finds a home and makes itself comfortable, in the little silly stuff. So when it gets to the big stuff, like when the people you're in a relationship with or somebody, that really matters offend you or something significant happens, it's already like a feeding ground because you've been holding on to all this little insignificant stuff. So forgiving from the heart as opposed to forgiving in your mind. Right? We all need it. Who said they need a heart check? Everybody needs a heart check. And that is so real. The Bible says, creating me a clean heart and renewing me the right spirit. That's kind of the general sense of it. Like, okay, let me check my heart. But one of the things that's very interesting is in Matthew, I think it's 18:35, it says, forgive from the heart. So it's like, okay, forgive from the heart, as in where else could you forgive from? And I tell you, you can forgive from your mind and it's still way deep down inside in your heart, because what happens is your heart is like a garden and it has soil and stuff grows. So if you get it into your heart, if something happens and it's in your heart, then you have to dig that thing out. That's why the Bible says to take every thought captive, because if you don't, and it goes from your head to your heart, that's where you have problems. That's why the Bible says guard your heart. Is guarding it from unforgiveness and all the things that can come against you. So here's what. If you think about it, like, get a picture in your mind. If I tell you something like, think of your favorite food and you love it, like you'll go out of your way and be inconvenienced to go get whatever this thing is. It's a mental thing. Everybody can kind of get a picture of that thing that they like in their head of, this is what I like. But now it's not necessarily in your heart. It's kind of still up in here. But then if I tell you to think of a person that you love, whether it's a parent, a spouse, a sibling, a significant other, whoever it is, but a person that you love and how kind they are to you and how loving and how much they've done for you and how grateful you are to have them in your life and how much you appreciate them. The sensation and the feeling is coming from a whole different place. That's coming from your heart. So your favorite food you love, that's still just a mental picture in your head. So I want you to pay attention to that kind of the difference, because the unforgiveness is in your head is different than when it's in your heart. So if you're trying to kind of, as you're in your quiet time, trying to process that out, think about that connection, that the person I love and the feelings and the emotions that came with that versus, my favorite slice of cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory or whatever your thing is. That being the case, to forgive from the heart, as cliche as this may sound, it really does start with a decision. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a decision. You just get to a point where you say, I have to let this go. And until you get to that point, you won't. And what happens is, here's how the enemy gets us, to make us think we've forgiven because we've forgiven in our heart. Oh yeah, I let that go. And you think you have until something comes up, something reminds you of that person, you have to be around that person, or you have to face whatever situation. And then all of a sudden you start feeling some kind of way. And you're like, I don't know. This is is not looking good. And if you start having those kind of feelings, that means in your heart, you have not forgiven. It's still just in your head. And I think one of the things I have found when I unpack the whole idea of forgiveness is one of the reasons we don't forgive is that we don't trust God. At its core foundation, it's a lack of trust in God. Because if you really believe when God says that vengeance is his, that reaping and sowing are real, then you're able to let it go. But when you feel like you have to hold on to it, when you start having plotting revenge and, he did me wrong, she did me wrong, she offended me, this happened, that happened. And if it can keep coming back, then that means you have not let it go and you don't trust it to God. And that's something that only renewing your mind and truly asking God to help you with can do it. Now, here's what I remind myself of. Two things I remind myself of that make it so much easier for me to forgive. And I've had to forgive a lot in my life. I mean, I've had some really kind of difficult situations that I've truly, truly had to let go. But here's the first thing. The first thing is you have to forgive because God said, if you don't forgive, I'm not forgiving you. That's enough to be a wake-up call to just about anybody who's lived more than about a year or two. Because chances are you have some stuff that you need to be forgiven for. And if you really take an inventory of some of your mess and your crap and the stuff you've done and the stuff that you know God was offended, you don't really have a right to withhold forgiveness to anybody else because you just don't have that luxury. So that's the first reason we have to forgive. The second one is in 2 Corinthians, there's a scripture and it says, we forgive so we don't get outsmarted by the enemy because we know his schemes. The enemy will play you like a fiddle if you have unforgiveness in your heart. And what ends up happening is you wonder why stuff isn't working, stuff isn't happening the way you want it in life. And it's because of the unforgiveness, because good things are not going to grow in your heart. The Bible says delight in the Lord, he'll give you desires of your heart. Well, that's a hard thing to do when your heart is full of weeds and stones and rocks because it's so hardened because of unforgiveness. And then you think that somehow God is missed the mark and God is not doing what he's supposed to do or living up to his end of the bargain, when in fact you're getting played by the enemy because of what you're holding on to. So make the decision and be willing to let it go. So there's that. And then I don't want to drill down too much on any one question because I have a few I want to get through. Second question. I am a 47-year-old widow. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. With 2 children. My husband has been deceased for 3 years. I tried dating last year and it didn't go so well. My friends are encouraging me to try dating again. I want to, but I feel like I'm betraying my husband. I understand that to many this may sound crazy, but it's been very hard for me. How do I get past this feeling of betrayal? Because I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life. My son is fine with me moving on, but my 15-year-old daughter is not so understanding of this. That's another issue. Well, the issue of the 15-year-old daughter, here's what I realize. As mothers, we sometimes get so carried away with wanting to make sure we accommodate our children on every level. But guess what? It has an expiration date because you're going to get outsourced. You hear about these teenagers who don't want their parents to move on or don't want them to date or don't want them to do anything. Well, all of a sudden you look up and they're in college and doing their life, and then you're sitting there thinking, okay, and I listen to you. Why exactly? So I would encourage you that don't feel too rushed and pressured, because the fact that you're having a hard time could be a strong indication that maybe you're just not ready to get back into the dating. And I don't know how long you were married, but being a widow at what is a relatively young age, that's hard. And then you end up being thrust in, and now you're a single mom. So I don't know that you should feel like there's a pressure. And you said you started dating, it didn't go so well. And I don't know what went wrong, but I would just tell you to just take your time. Obviously, trust God with it. But also, I'd really want to unpack and really get you to start thinking about this whole idea of you don't want to feel like you're betraying your husband. Is that what it really is? I can tell you, for all the women I've coached, they come to me with one thing, but it ends up being something else. And is it really that you feel like you're betraying your husband because your vow, your wedding vow said, till death do us part? So death did you part. You're not betraying him, but is it maybe intimidation to get back on the dating scene? Maybe it's a little bit of fear. I would be nervous, to be honest with you. I haven't dated in over 25 years. I wouldn't know what to do, like in a dating. I mean, I would, because the mechanics haven't changed much, but just having to think about the whole rigmarole of it can be sometimes overwhelming. So maybe you're hiding behind the idea of feeling like you're betraying your husband, and it's really a lot to do with the fear and the being overwhelmed with getting thrust back into something that's maybe been very unfamiliar to you. So just kind of think about that a little bit. And as far as your children, they'll be just fine, because take it from me, with a grown child, once they get out of high school and get into college and get into their life, they're doing their thing, and it won't matter what you're doing. So she'll be just fine. Okay, here's another one. Oh Lord. The guy I was with for the last 5 years just told me he married another woman, and we were still dating. He's been married for 3 months, and I just found out. I'm heartbroken, can't stop crying because I don't understand. Okay. So I'm assuming your question is, how do you get over this? Now, for anybody who's been ever following me or been on a girl talk, you already know that this kind of stuff is just, I hate that women end up in these positions. I really, really do. Like, this is just something I'm so passionate about. First of all, you've been dating this man for 5 years. Ladies. There is no such thing as dating for 5 years. Unless you are in high school or college. If you are over the age of 25, you cannot date for 5 years. That's not dating. That's just placeholding. You are holding a place until he finds his wife. So you are accommodating everything he needs. You are being exactly what he needs until he finds what he really wants. 5 years is too long. It doesn't take that long for a man to figure out if this is what he wants in life. So do yourself a favor. If it, after a year, 2 years, and there's not any, there's no movement towards marriage, especially if that's something you desire, then you have to be willing to say, where is this going? And what do I want to get out of this? And for the love of God, don't start shacking with him, because you just put the nail in your coffin. That's like the kiss of death, because now he has zero motivation to marry. Now, I'm assuming that these two are not living together, because there's no way you could have been living together and you found out he was married. So assuming you weren't living together, first mistake, 5 years is too long. Second thing is, how do you date someone or placehold for 5 years? 5 years, 60 months. That's a long time. And you don't notice anything that would lend himself that he is in a whole nother relationship? I think sometimes, ladies, we have got to do better with reading the road signs and seeing the red flags for what they are. And, you get that gut check, and, maybe it's one of those relationships where all he does is text, or on the weekends, all he can do is text, or he can't talk, or this or that. Like, all these things you start noticing, and you notice them, but you don't want to notice them. So you rationalize it, and you come up with all these excuses. He's busy working, he's this, he's that. And you start rationalizing it to enable and coddle basically just foolishness. I was watching this show. I tend to watch, some odd shows on TV, and my new guilty pleasure is this show called 90 Day Fiance. And it's these Americans that fall in love with people overseas, with foreigners, and then they get a visa to come here and they have to get married within 90 days. Well, Stevie Wonder can see in most of these relationships, the foreigner is just trying to get a green card. But anyway, so this was like this. When I heard this woman say this, I said, she's such a classic example of how we will rationalize some stuff to the nth degree. So she's got this man in Nigeria, and he told her the reason he does not have her picture anywhere in his phone or anywhere on his phone is because if the police stop him and they see her picture, they'll take him to jail because they will think that he's scamming her. Now, for those of you who've never been to Nigeria, I have. It's about 20 billion people. I'm exaggerating, but with plenty of crime. The things they are not investigating are whose picture is on your cell phone. It was so ludicrous. But listening to this woman tell her girlfriends, and guess what? Girlfriends, ladies, do your girlfriends a favor. When they're being half crazy about the blind spots they're ignoring, pull their coattail. And her friends are saying, well, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I can see how that could happen. No, you can't, and no, you don't. No, be a better friend. A good friend tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So even if the discernment isn't happening with you, let your girlfriend step up and be honest with you and give you some truth. And I'm just a firm believer that as a woman, you know deep down inside what's going on. You have to know, because he could not foster the kind of relationship that ends in marriage and it not come on your radar. So pay attention to the road signs. And to say you were still dating, you were still placeholding. Now you find out he's been married for 3 months. So let me tell you what that tells me. You've never been, in 3 months, you never went to his house. You never called his house. You didn't speak to him in the evenings or the weekends, because those would have all been red flags. Now, your heart is broken and you can't stop crying. I wish I were that person that would say something so loving and so comforting that you would just feel amazing. But I'm not that person, because here's what I'm thinking. Girl, you should not be heartbroken. You dodged a bullet. You should be sending him a thank you note from saving you from wasting any more of your life on this joker who was willing to date you, lead you on, and then turn around and marry somebody else. And oh, by the way, he's already a cheater and an adulterer, because if you were dating him for 3 months while he's been married, what does that tell you about his character? So if you didn't get real before of the loser that he was, now you really need to get real and say, oh my God, I just dodged a bullet. Because if I had married this fool, that would have been me on the other end with a husband who cheats only 3 months into the marriage. He lies, he cheats. My grandmother said, you lie, you cheat, you'll steal. But I don't necessarily know that that's the case. Put your big girl pants on and tell your heart, get it together. The right man is out there, but you got to pay attention. And there is no reason. I mean, you say you can't stop crying. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Because if you change your perspective and realize that you dodged a bullet, I would encourage you, if you are on this Facebook right now, stop what you're doing and go take a praise lap. Because your story could have been a whole lot worse if you'd married that loser. I promise you. Okay. Wait. T says she agrees with Grandma. When it comes to having faith and believing God for next steps, how is it that some people can hear from God more clearly than others? I second guess a lot of opportunities because I'm so unsure. Well, here's what's very interesting about hearing from God. Well, the first part of the question, when it comes to having faith and believing God for next steps, faith is almost like, believing God is almost like, I equate that with like being pregnant. you either are or you aren't. You're either going to believe God and take him at his word or you're not. And there is no in between. So if you're going to believe God, and if you're having a hard time doing that, I would tell you to take a refresher course in his faithfulness. Whenever your faith starts getting a little, wavery, you just need to take a refresher course in his faithfulness and think about everything he's brought you through and gotten you to this point. But it says, how can some people hear from God more clearly than others? Well, first of all, I don't even know how you compare that, because you're not hearing God on behalf of somebody else. So there's really no way to know. Now, there are some people who do a whole lot of religious gymnastics, and they can relay a conversation they had with God like you could your girlfriend. It's like, I said this, and then God said this, and I said this, and God said that. I don't judge. I don't know. I've never had one of those kind of conversations with God, like as a girlfriend, exchange back and forth. I think the main reason people don't hear from God is because he speaks in a still small whisper, and there's just way too much noise. And we got so much coming at us and so much distracting us that how can you really hear from God if you've got, your phone on, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you got the TV going, your friend, like there's just so much noise and so much stuff coming at us. And God's a gentleman. He's not going to punch you, beat you down to tell you what he needs to tell you. He's just going to sit back and wait for you to come to him. And he speaks in a still small voice. That's the first thing. So I would encourage you to kind of distract and unplug. I did a fast the beginning of the year. In January, our church always does a fast. So I did a fast, but I didn't do food because for me, I'm already like one of those health nuts, and I eat totally clean, and there's not much more I could give up without just not eating at all. So I said, I want to do something different. Like I want to feel sacrificial. So I gave up just basically being connected into the world. And I know that sounds all like religious and deep and all that, and it's not, I promise you. I just wanted to really see what it was like to be able to really hear from God and to just be quiet and still, because he kept saying, I kept getting this word, be still and know that I am God. And I was like, okay, well, what does being still really, really look like? So I came off all social media. You all don't know that because of T. Shout out to T. She kept social media going. But I didn't look at social media. I didn't check it. I didn't think about it. I didn't watch any television. I didn't even talk on the phone unless I was having a purposeful conversation, like about my parents or something that needed to be said. But like just on the phone with idle chit chat and all that, nothing. And it was basically just a time to really reset for the year, to focus and to hear God. And when I tell you, I heard from God like nobody's business. And I realized it's because I wasn't hearing from everybody and everything else. And I did that for 21 days. Now, you don't have to do it for 21 days. You could do it for 2 hours and you'd be amazed if you just shut everything down and get intentional with it. And, it'll be easy to say, well, I can't do it because, I've got this and I've got that. If your life is as such where you don't have even an hour or two to shut down at some point in an entire week to hear from God, then you really need to reevaluate how you're living and what your priorities are. To be able to shut it down and say, okay, this is my time and I want to be able to be quiet and still. And then you really will hear from him. I promise you. And, it's not going to be necessarily that he said this and I said that, or, the lightning from the sky and, like God is peering down like, Stacey, pay attention. It's not that, but he will speak into your heart, and he'll speak a word into your heart. You'd be amazed. The second thing is, when it comes to hearing from God, a lot of times we hear from him, but then we don't believe him. We don't believe him. It's like, oh no, I could never do that. It's too much. I don't know. And we start second guessing ourselves. We let doubt, the voice of doubt comes immediately behind God and tries to mess us up. And so we don't believe him, even though we heard it, but we dismiss it. Or we don't trust him. Or option number 3, and I have been here in all transparency, I'm not even going to front. We don't like the word we got. And that's just real. And I've had times where God will give me a word and I'm like, I want to send that back. I want to, can I get a different word? That's not what I wanted to hear. And, those are all things that we have to be willing to be honest enough with ourselves. Because here's what I realize in my relationship with God. Whenever there's a problem, unlike my relationship with my husband, where if there's a problem, I know he's it. I'm joking, ladies. But in a relationship with God, whatever's going on, if you're not hearing him, if stuff is not working, whatever's going on, you automatically know that God is not the problem. So the good news is it's something that you're doing or not doing that you can correct so that you can get into that right place to be able to hear from God or get whatever you need out of your relationship with God. So as far as second guessing opportunities, there's something to be said. One of my hashtags on social media that I swear by is being unwavering. And, the Bible says you got to have faith and you just cannot doubt. You have got to be willing, like, not let the enemy play you with doubt and just kind of have that line in the sand, like, not only no, but hell no, not today. I am not doubting. I'm holding strong. I'm standing strong. I'm going to be bold and I'm going to be unwavering. I'm not doing this, because until you get sick and tired of being sick and tired and you want your breakthrough, you will stand like it's nobody's business. As long as you're okay with settling for less and mediocrity, you'll keep folding like a cheap piece of suitcase, cheap piece of luggage, and a wind to come by and it'll knock you over. But when you get to that place where it's like, no, I am standing because I've had enough and I'm ready to go to the next level. I want something different, and all this wavering and back and forth and waffling, this is not cutting it. This is not getting me into the promise that I want, and enough is enough. And, to be honest with you, I'm kind of gangster about it, which is what makes me, take on that kind of mantra of being unwavering. I'm like, no, I'm looking at what God says my life is supposed to look like. And if it's not lining up, that's a problem. And I'm not backing down from that. And so I'm going to stand, and that's just going to be it. So that's what I would encourage you to do, so that you're not kind of being unwavering and missing out on opportunity. Okay. Here's another question. When it comes to family, Lord Jesus, because we all know that if family doesn't test your love of God, I don't know who or whatever will. When it comes to family, I feel as if everybody comes to me for money and assistance. And when I tell them no, they tend to throw old things they've done for me in my face. What is the best way to handle these types of situations? It's hard when people around you are struggling and constantly tugging on you. I would like to save and pay off debt, but I can't do that trying to help everyone else. Okay. Family is one of those things. It's so tricky. And, we all have, certain family needs and drains, and it's not always money. Let me just be clear. Family can drain on you in other ways. Sometimes it's time and energy and emotion. It is not just money. But, there is such a thing as being able to have healthy boundaries, even within your family structure. And as women, I have found we don't do that really, really well. We tend to feel like we have to, we're like martyrs. We have to be Jesus Jr. and we have to be all things to all people. And then we act like, and I don't know where this came from, but we act like telling people no is like a sin against nature. Like it is so hard for us to tell people no. And I don't know what that is exactly. I don't know. I think a lot of it the root of it is in people pleasing, wanting people to like you, being concerned about what people think of you, because there's a concern that if I say no, what are they going to think of me? And, we go through all these gyrations in our head to rationalize why we struggle with saying no. There is nothing that will bless you more than the ability to be able to say no, to mean it, and not have to feel guilty about it. The Bible says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Otherwise, you open yourself up to the enemy. And so to get comfortable and firm in your no and not feel like you have to say, like, let's say, cousin Snoopy, who's forever always needing something, his cell phone bill is late or whatever his little issues are. Here he comes and he just, can I get $50 off? Can I borrow $50? Well, first of all the times he's borrowed it and not paid it back, you already know his track record. why do you have to feel guilty to just be able to say no? But here's what I've noticed women will do. You say no, but then you have a million different, like, well, no, because, I don't get paid until next week, or I had, an extra bill that came up I wasn't expecting, or my car needs tires. Like, we start justifying it and dialing it down. I dare you, try this. Just be bold enough the next time somebody comes with you with some unnecessary request of foolishness, just say no and let the silence say everything else. And I promise you, it will bless you. And they're not even going to know what to do at first. It's going to be like, because they're going to be looking for you to give an explanation and to start dialing it down and all that. No, and let the silence say everything else. And I promise you, it will work. So there is no reason for you to feel guilty. Now, having said that, you have parents, they need certain things. You want to balance this and temper this with love and compassion and kindness. But most of the things that we have a hard time saying no with are what I call the unnecessary, voluntary foolishness and drama, where no, you don't need to loan cousin Snooky $50 for his cell phone. No, you don't need to go drive 25 miles out the way for some foolishness that, your sibling did with some man that she can't, she's being in a relationship with, and she's making silly decisions. Get to a point where you say, you know what? Let me put the oxygen mask on myself, because here's what I realized. If you don't learn how to say no, when you need a yes, you won't have one, because you'll be too preoccupied with all the stuff you should have said no to. So when the right yes presents itself, when Mr. Right, when right opportunity, when right situation, when the right situation, you'll be over here with all the stuff you should have said no to, and you'll miss the right yes because you got caught up in all the wrong no's. Okay. Did I make that plain? Ooh, it's almost 9 o'clock. So one more, and this is a quick one. Sometimes I get lonely as a single woman, but I would love to date. What are some of your suggestions? Well, here's what I know. One, do not ask single women who have never been married for dating advice. Because if they've never been married, they don't know. So if you're trying to get married, talk to other married women. Hang out with other married women. The second thing is, when it comes to, dating, I always say, when you think about Ruth was in position for Boaz to find her. If you never go anywhere, if you never do anything, if you never make yourself available, if you don't open yourself up to new experiences and opportunities, Ruth didn't know anything about gleaning in a field before she started gleaning. But, Naomi told her, go glean. She started gleaning. She was like, oh, I've never done that. No, but I don't glean. That's not me. Girl, if your Naomi tells you to go glean, go glean. And so I always encourage single women, go where men go. We will want to date, and we'll go places that only women go. Like to certain conferences or certain events or women's like that's your whole life is going where only women go. Find some interest where there are men. Like, for example, golf. Learn how to play golf. Just go to the putting range. Tennis. The things that guys do. Sports. Like put yourself in position. And let me tell you something. If you attend a church, you should be at every men's conference within a 50-mile radius of where you live as a volunteer. Because what better way to be found than serving at church for men's conferences and men's events where you just, I'd be a greeter of the first order at every men's conference. I'd get on the internet and print out a list. Like, you got to be strategic. And I'd have a list of like, okay, this church is having a men's gathering. This one wins a men's fellowship. Let me volunteer and be a volunteer. The point is, ladies, you have to be willing to put yourself in position and stop doing the stuff that only women do, doing it in groups, and then wondering why it's not happening. Having said that, I want to say real quickly, I know that online dating is a new thing now. When I was dating, it didn't happen. If I were single, I can honestly say I think I would do online dating with a whole lot of precautions. clearly you want to be very mindful about who's on the other end. And, you know, I had a young lady I was coaching and she was online dating and she had a system, which I thought was just absolutely admirable. She didn't spend a whole lot of time on the phone with him because she said, you know, chemistry is so important. And there was no reason to spend a whole lot of time talking because that sets you up for getting catfish. Because then they have Valerie says she doesn't agree with it. We'll come back to that in a second, Valerie. You know, they have a picture to pretend like they are who they are, but you're talking on the phone and, you know, you've been talking on the phone 3 months, never met him. You claim to be in love and you never even met the person. So she only talks maybe 30, 45 minutes. And then they meet in a public place like Starbucks or something and have coffee and take it from, you know, see if there's any interest or chemistry. So I think that makes sense. Valerie, I get your point. And I'm sure it's probably very scary, the idea of doing it online. But here's the way I look at it. I mean, it's people, I've met people who date somebody they met in the supermarket or in the club or whatever. So I don't know really what the difference is. If you meet a guy in the club, it's kind of the same thing, because you don't really know him. And in the early dating stage, especially as crazy as stuff is now, I would use a whole lot of precaution. Like, it would be a long time before he knew where I lived. You know, I would drive my own car. We'd meet in a public place, preferably daytime, you know, crowded type activity. Like, I mean, I would put a whole lot of precaution into it, but I don't know that there's that much difference between meeting somebody online and meeting them in the club, except you get to see him face to face. Now, again, I would not spend a whole lot of time on the phone, because if they can't come and meet within a few weeks, something is wrong with that. Red flag, hello. And you want to see if there's chemistry, if they can only text and they can only text at night, no, like all that stuff, no, cut it off. But I think it's okay as long as you put in wisdom and precautions. So that's it. It's almost 9 o'clock. Ladies, thank you so much. I hope you guys have fun. I did. Oh, wait. Tinder or Match.com. Okay, so for anybody who was wondering, Tinder or Match, I'm assuming those are good dating sites. You can have chemistry. Right. Okay, so see, you're saying what I'm saying, Angela. Like, don't drag it out on the phone. Go straight to Starbucks and meet in a public crowded place and automatically know, because, you know, I've met women who tell me they've been talking to somebody online for 6 months, and I'm like, talking about what? Like, that's ridiculous. So there you have it. Ladies, if you are not part of the subscription list, get on Facebook and get on the subscription list. So next time we do Girl Talk, you can get your questions answered. If there's anything else I can do to help or to follow up, I've had a blast. For people who want to really drill down and get serious and on a professional level, I have resumed back my fall coaching schedules, and I've got a few slots open. So if anybody feels like they want some one-on-one, you know, serious professional private coaching, you can send an email to team@staceyspeller.com and we'll get in touch with you for that. In the meantime, thank you so much. I've had a blast. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.